Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video from NMZ channel. In the last video from CCNA series, we just present this a small presentation about the network and about the different network architecture, and also we speak about this OSI model that as I said, we are going to work in this three layer now: physical layer, data link layer, and network layer, the layer 3. And also we actually see some router and see some difference between ASR and ISR router from Cisco, and also about switches and so on. And in this video I'm going to do some practical thing using Packet Tracer. I'm using Packet Tracer because actually this software is very good for the beginner who are starting the network field, actually, because this software gives you a complete physical view of the device, and also all other feature that this device may have, because we don't have any physical device here, but this software is give us the exact physical view of the switches, routers, and so on. And actually having physical device is very good, but you know that the Cisco devices are very expensive, and it's not possible for everyone to create a lab at home using the physical devices. And because of that, we are going to use some softwares like Packet Tracer, and also there is a software named EVNG. You can find a video from EVNG in the this channel. But that one is very good software also, and you can use that for emulate the Cisco iOS devices. But this Packet Tracer is a simulator, and it's simulating everything inside for example, this router. Okay, let's start with this router. I just drag a router here. It's ISR 4331, and let me show you a physical view of this device. As you can see here, you have a picture of that, and there is it has some ports. You can see the ports here, they are available. It has 4 ports here, and also you can see some ports for aux. It's a console cable, and another USB port for console cable here. Okay, it also have has a USB port that may be used for uploading some iOS new version iOS, for updating this router, and so on. But for now, let's just emphasize to the CLI of this router. Also, before that, let me show you that we have 2 free slides here for installing the other module if needed. For example, you can see that we have this NIM2T. This one actually is this module, and we can just install this module. The power is on. Let me turn off this router. As I said, it's going to simulate everything. If the router is on, you cannot plug this slides and this module to this. This module actually gives you two ports for serial, and we have different ports. Then during this course we'll speak about that. And in the real world, if you buy a router, you may see exactly the same things, exactly the same. You can see that now I can just plug a cover here to close this port, actually this slide, and so on. In the real environment, if you just go buy a router, the router may come like this in the box, and if you need any serial port, you have to go and buy a module for that, and then install that to this router. And please make sure that when you buy something for a router, for a switch, make sure that the part number of that is matching with the switch, and it is compatible with the switch or the router. Okay, let it be like this, and now we have this router. As you see in this presentation, I show you the routers, and they are like this. This is a router, not this one actually. This in the lab, when you go, for example, for the CCNA exam and you receive a lab, in the lab you will see this symbol as a router. This symbol is a router everywhere in the labs and in the books, if you see any diagram and so on. And if you see here also in the topology, that in the topology and architecture that I show you, you can see that we have some symbols here. For example, this one is a layer 2 switches, and they are the layer 3 switches like this. And also here you can see different symbols and icons that used to represent a router and a switch. Here in the packet tracer, this is a router, and let's assume that we just unbox this router, and now we have this router, and it's you can see it's turned off. I just turn it off here from this button, and now I need to actually do some configuration in this router. For doing the configuration, here in the packet tracer, let me turn on this router and go to the CLI, and in the CLI you can see that this router is going to boot, and also it shows the version ISR 4300 series and the actually exact the version of this image. But in the real, you don't have any CLI in the router. If you just unbox a router, it doesn't have any monitor to show you this CLI, and because of that you need to connect this router to a computer to access its CLI. For that, let's do this, and let's go to the endpoint devices, and let me bring a PC here. Okay, now I have a PC and I have a router. Now I need to connect these two together. We have different way to connect the router to a PC. Actually, not to connect, to see the CLI and to connect to CLI of a router. The first one, because when we just unbox this router, it doesn't have any configuration. There is no IP configured here, no telnet or no SSH is configured here. Then we cannot access this router through the network. And if it's big, it's connected, we just connect that to a network and try to access this because it doesn't have any IP address. We cannot actually telnet or SSH this device. Because of that, at the first we need to connect this router using a console cable. Let me show you a console cable here. I already searched about the console cable, and let me bring it to the desktop. You can see this is a different model of console cable that is now available. For example, this is the console cable. One part is RJ45 and another side is USB. It will be very good for the laptop because they have the USB. But this one, you can see that one side is the RJ45. It goes to the router, to this one. You can see this is the console. You connect to this, and the other side will connect to a serial port of a desktop or maybe laptop. Some laptop DAF books they have this serial port also because they're designed to be used inside the configuration of such devices, and they already have this port. But if they don't have any port like this and you have a laptop, you may use one of these converters. You can see that we can connect this serial port to serial port and make it to USB and connect it to our desktop and so on. But this one, you can see this is USB, mini USB and USB type A. These two actually we can say that's the modern type of console cable that is maybe available in the router. Actually, if we check this router, we can see it has a port for mini USB here, and it means that it's a very modern router and we can connect this using the USB. And let's go for the connection and try to connect a console cable from the router to the PC. You can see here the exact color that I showed you before, this color. is also used in the Cisco Packet Tracer, and it represents this console cable in the same color. If you open a box of a router, you will see I saw all router that all Cisco devices are actually, if you open that, it has a console cable with it, and it's the same color like this. Okay, let's connect this one side to the, actually you can see it has a USB console. Let's connect to this. Cannot connect to this. It means that this our console cable, actually it's not a USB. One side you can see in the icon is also show it, it's RG45, and then let's it connected to the console, and other part other side, let's connect that to the RS232, and it's a serial port for this. If I try to connect that to USB, it doesn't work. It means that the other side is also not a USB, and it's a serial port. Okay, now this router is connected to this PC, and I should be able to access this router using the terminal of this PC. Okay, let's go to this PC and to the desktop, and let's go to the terminal. In the terminal you can see that we have a bit per second. It's a speed of the use of the serial port, and by default we can check that what the speed is actually configured in this router, but by default is 9600 for the speed. Okay, let's select this speed and press OK. You can see that now we are connected to the CLI of the router, and normally it's showing the black, no, and now we are inside the router. And also for the software that actually we can use for this, I'm using the PADI here. Let me show you. This is a PADI, and in my opinion it's the best software for accessing any router, any switch, or any network devices inside the network, or even using the serial port. You can see that we have an option of SSH, and we just need to write the IP address or the host name if we have a DNS server of the router or a switch, and then connect to that. And it's clearly said that it's using port 22 for the SSH, and if you go for the Cisco CCNA exam, you may be asked for this port number for SSH, and also for Telnet you can see it's a port 23. And also it has option for serial. If I select the serial, and also you can see here I can set the speed for that, for the serial port. As a network engineer, I recommend that you should have a USB drive with yourself and have all this useful software with you anywhere you go, to any data center or any where that you need to install a router, to configure a router, then you will need this software like this. The good thing about the PADI is that it doesn't need any installation. It has some standalone and it doesn't need any installation. You just need to click on that, and this window will come to you, and you can select how you want to connect to your router. Okay, let's close this, and let's go back to our desktop. You can see that also we can connect with the terminal of a PC to this router. Actually, the router as a, let's speak about the router now. The router actually has some different mode. You can see here the host name is router, and you can see this symbol. This symbol shows that we are in the user execution mode. It's called user execution mode. It means that we need to type some command here to go to the other modes, like privilege mode. For now, if I just type here the question mark, you can see that we have some limited command for this mode, and it doesn't let us to configure everything, to see everything, or to do some configuration to the interface, or IP address or DHCP server and so on. And because of that, you can see we have the connect, we have enable. This is the more important one, that we need to enable this. And also we can ping if we need to check the connectivity, or we are troubleshooting a problem. We can ping it without actually enable this router. Show command SSH to another device, or telnet to another device, and so on. There is a lot of command actually inside the different mode of the router or a switch, but actually all of them is not used in the daily, I can say daily works, because some of them are very special commands, and maybe you don't use it at all, and it may be used very rarely, and because of that it doesn't need you to actually know all of this command and to the functionality of all this command. By now we need to actually type the command enable here, and then we can go to the privilege mode. You can see this symbol is changed to a hashtag, and it means that we are in a privilege mode. If I type a question mark here, you can see that we have more command actually here, and it means that we have some privilege here to do some other function, or to do some other configuration in this mode. You can see we have it was maybe 10, but this one is more than that, of course, and you have some other privilege here to do. And the next mode here, it's the configure terminal mode. If I type it configure terminal, and now in this mode I can go to the global configuration mode. This is actually the configuration, as you see the name, the configure terminal. Now we are able to configure everything here, but here there is nothing for the configuration. Actually, it's also some command to show, or to SSH to maybe to another device, telnet to another device, or dir to see the registry and erase something, copy and set the clock, and so on. Actually, it's not a configuration, but when to go to the configure terminal in this command, now you can see the host name, and then it's in the parentheses you can see it's a config. It means that we are in the configuration mode. And then after this configuration, we also have some other mode. For example, we need to go to the interface to do some configuration in the interface. For example, I'm going to interface gigabit 111. Now, okay, I don't have such interface. Let me see what interface that I have. Interface. Let me do some show command here. Let's exit from this and say show running config. In the running config, you can see, yes, we have the gigabit interface 000, and let's go to that. Remember, we need to go to configure terminal, and then we need to go interface, and then the name of the interface gigabit 000. Now we are in the interface mode, and you can see config and then if. It means that we are in interface. We are in the interface, and some other configuration maybe also be here. For example, if I go to IP DHCP, for example, pool, name it for example 1, you can see that I'm in another mode, and I'm in the DHCP mode. You can see it's a DHCP, then config. It means that it's another interface inside the configuration, another mode inside the configuration. And let's exit from that, and there is also one other mode, and that is the Roman mode. What is Roman mode? It's actually I don't know if I speak about that now. It's a mode that the router doesn't actually boot completely. It just boot in the some part of a router. It's a very small software to actually, if we for example remember forget a password of a router, then in that mode we can actually recover our password from that mode. And I will show you that also, but in the other videos. By now I just want to do some configuration here for this router. And as I said, after enabling, let me exit from this, and now we need to enable actually our router. After that we need to go to the configuration, configure terminal, and here now we can do some configuration. Let me show you some basic command for that. For example, we need to give some host name for this router. Assume that we just installing this router for a company, and that company has 5 different floor, and in every floor it has 2 routers. Okay, for that we need to actually it will be very good, it's a very good practice to give a host name for the router, and every time when we connect to that router remotely or from the serial, we can see the name of the router, and we will be sure that we are working in a correct router. For example, this we are going to install this router in the 4th floor, and let me name it 4th floor, and let's assume that this is the router 1. Press enter. You can see here that this host name is changed to 4th floor, and this is the router 1. Every time you connect to this router remotely or using a serial number physically, a serial port, and then you can see this name of the router, and you will be sure that you are connected on a correct router or not. Then let's do some configuration for the password. Assume that we have this, we just configured this router, and now every time when someone just connect the serial port to a console port to this router and just type enable, and it will easily access this and then go to the configure terminal and maybe do some configuration here. And we don't want this actually. Maybe the router be in a corridor or somewhere in open area, and everyone, the client, also the staff of the company maybe may have access to this, and someone just connect his computer to this router and do some configuration, and from the security reason it's a very bad practice, and because of that we need to have some password for this router to make sure that only the authorized staff are to be eligible to actually go to this router and configure this router, troubleshoot it, or do any change in this. For that, let's just assign some password to this router. For that, let me assign it password. For example, enable password. Let's name it Cisco. Okay, now our router has a password, and if we just come here, remember it was an enable password. If someone type enable, then it will ask a password for enabling this router. Now after typing the password, the correct password will be we will access this router. And let me show you, if I just type some random password here, for example this is, and you can see if the password is wrong, after 3 try it will just stop requesting password. And then let's enable this and then type our correct password here. Okay, now our router has a password. Let's assume we are troubleshooting this router and we need to see the configuration of that. I'm typing here the show running config, and you can see that first we see the version of that, and then the host name, and then the enable password, and it's in the clear text. If anyone just watching you or someone just crossing that corridor, he or she will easily see this password, and okay, now I know the password is Cisco. Next time when someone comes to that router, he knows the password and just try to access the router. Because of that, Cisco has another option here, and that is the enable secret. The enable secret actually taking a password from you. For example, I'm putting the Cisco 123 as a password, as a secret. And now if I just exit from this and run the show command, show run and config, here you can see the enable secret is encrypted. Actually, it's a secret, and now this is not actually the password, this is a hash of that password we just select before. And if someone just see this, okay, it doesn't recognize it's a password, and it's not a password, it's encrypted, and no one cannot read this and translate that to the real password. If I exit from that, and now if I enable this, and this time there's router will ask me from the actually enable secret, not from the enable password. If I type here Cisco, you can see we cannot access this. We need to type the Cisco 123, and now I'm actually inside the router. It means that this enable secret override the enable password, and if someone just see this enable password, it doesn't matter, because router, after we assign an enable secret for that, it doesn't request any enable password for us, and it doesn't accept the Cisco as an enable. It will ask for enable secret here. Okay, let's assume that we just finish our configuration. Now we need to save this configuration, because this configuration now it's in the running configuration and it's not saved inside the password. If this router restart or maybe the power cut off something, the router will turn off, and when it come back it doesn't have any configuration, because this configuration actually it's not saved, and now it's in the running configuration. For that we need to type the command copy the running configuration to startup configuration. Now what is the startup configuration? The startup configuration is it's a file, and it's some configuration in that, and when the router start, it just read this configuration and load it in the running configuration. And if I just save this, now enter, okay, it's asking me destination file name is the startup configuration, yes. And now this configuration is saved. I can see this configuration. Let me show running config, and this is the running configuration that we enable secret and also the host name. And if I go to the show startup configuration, and the startup configuration also, you can see I have the same configuration that is now in the running. And now if I just restart or reload this router, let me type the command reload and confirm it, and after this, when the router is reload, then we will have this configuration in the router. The configuration will not be deleted, and every time the router restarts, it will boot up and then run that startup configuration in the running configuration to be functional. Okay, enable, and you can see now it's asking me Cisco 123 as the enable secret, and now I'm in the router. Okay, I believe this video become long enough, and in the next video we will do some other configuration. And let me, before finishing this video, let me go to configure terminal, and let me show you here that we have a lot of actually command here. You can see it's a lot of command for the configuration here, and again, let me tell you that maybe you don't use all this configuration. Some of this configuration will use very rarely, but some of them is used a lot, like if you assign IP address. If you assign the clock time zone, of course you need that IP address, and also maybe for logging for some kind of troubleshooting. And you can see this policy map and access list. I think it should be here, the different type of access list. Yes, and this commands is will use not too much, but we need them. But some of them maybe you never use them, and you may never need them to use. Okay, for now let's finish our video here. Thank you for your watching, and please subscribe us and follow us in the CCNA section of the video. I'm going to show you a lot of practical thing inside the router and also inside the switch. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.